Hello. In this week's Torah portion, Shemini, we hear what many non-Jews consider to be a defining commandment in Judaism. Quote, "The pig is unclean to you. You shall not eat its flesh." Unquote. So, we Jews are not allowed to eat pork. No chops, no sausages, no chorizo, no bacon, no ham, no andouille, no saucisson, no mortadella, no gammon, no pulled pork, no lards, no pig's feet, no pork rind, etc., etc. Although all non-kosher food is to be equally avoided, pork seems to have a place of dishonor in that pantheon. As someone once put it, shrimp is naughty, but pork is anti-Semitic. Why is pork prohibited? The simple answer is we don't know. It's one of these commandments known as hokim, that is, commandments for which we do not have a rational explanation. This does not mean that speculation on the reason does not exist. In fact, speculation on possible reasons for commandments is a branch of Jewish literature all by itself. Let's review some of these explanations. The Torah says, "You shall not eat pork." That's because undercooked pork causes a disease called trichinosis, which can be fatal. Back in biblical days, they did not know such things, so God simply forbade eating pork. Now that we know, all we need to do is cook the pork to at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit until all pink portions turn white or gray. Then we can eat as much of it as we want. The Torah says you shall not eat shellfish. Similarly, shellfish contains potent toxins which cause food poisoning, and so must be cooked thoroughly. So, fry shellfish for at least 3 minutes at 375 degrees, or bake it for at least 10 minutes at 450 degrees, and you can eat it to your heart's content. The Torah says, do not worship idols. Well, I certainly don't believe in that idol nonsense. I'm just going through the motions to be sociable with my neighbors, so it's okay. The Torah says, circumcise your son. Well, back then they did not know that the area under the foreskin must be kept clean to avoid infections and cancer of the penis. Now we know that, and with the proper hygiene, circumcision is unnecessary. The Torah says, be fruitful and multiply, and men shall not lie with other men. Well, you have to understand that back then, there were very few people on earth, and we needed to populate the planet. So these commandments were very much needed. Also, people died early because of disease, war, natural disasters, etc. However, now people live much longer. We control our environment much better, and some areas are even overpopulated. So these commandments are irrelevant today. The Torah says, don't settle in the land of Egypt ever again. Well, back then we would have been re-enslaved by Pharaoh. Much later, after the pharaohs were gone, Jews went back to Egypt and were safe. Of course, no Jews live in Egypt today because we have been expelled after the wars with Israel. But that may change. At any rate, we can ignore this commandment in times when the government of Egypt is friendly. The Torah says, don't have sex with your sister. Well, the reason for avoiding inbreeding is that we want the children to have as few birth defects as possible. But we don't plan to have children, so it's okay. The Torah says, do not uncover the nakedness of your father's wife. That obviously means just don't force her. I didn't. She uncovered her nakedness all by herself, so it's okay. The Torah says, do not take your brother's wife. Again, I didn't. She gave herself, so it's okay. The Torah says, do not lie with your uncle's wife. Well, we did this sitting down, and sometimes even standing up, so it's okay. The Torah says, you must fast on Yom Kippur. The reason is obviously so you can concentrate on prayer and repentance. But unlike you, I can do that and eat also. And so on and so forth. You can always invent plausible reasons and then argue that they don't apply anymore. The Talmud was aware of the slippery slope and warned against it. It gave the example of King Solomon, that great and wise king. When he thought he knew the reasons for some commandments, he broke them, because he found a way to satisfy what he thought those reasons were without observing the commandments proper. Quote, Rabbi Yitzhak also said, why were the reasons of most Torah laws not revealed? Because in 2 verses reasons were revealed, and they caused the greatest in the world, King Solomon, to stumble. Thus it is written in the Torah, the king shall not take too many wives, so his heart will not be turned away from the Torah and towards idolatry. So King Solomon said, I will take many wives and not let my heart be perverted. Yet we read in the book of Kings, when Solomon was old, his wives turned away his heart. Again, it is written in the Torah, the king shall not acquire too many horses, so as not to cause the people to return to Egypt, which is the greatest horse market. Because the Lord said, you shall not go back to Egypt. So King Solomon said, I will acquire many horses and not cause Israel to return to Egypt. Yet we read in the book of Kings, and Solomon had horses brought from Egypt, and the chariot came up and went out of Egypt for 600 shekels of silver. Unquote. Maimonides concludes his Sefer HaMitzvot, the Book of Commandments, by admonishing us against this behavior. Quote, this story is a lesson to people. If God revealed the reasons for all the commandments, they would find ways to disobey them. If even someone as great and perfect as King Solomon could make the mistake of thinking that he could do the forbidden act and avoid the underlying reason for the prohibition, how much more so the more weak-minded masses? Certainly, if they knew the reasons for the commandments, they would disregard them by saying, this was prohibited or this was commanded only for such and such a reason. I can avoid the reason for which the commandment was given and ignore the commandment itself. In such a way, the entire Torah could be nullified. God therefore concealed the rationale for the commandments. There is not a single commandment, however, that does not have a reason and a purpose. The majority of these causes and reasons, though, cannot be grasped or understood by the masses. Unquote. So, the danger of trichinosis may well be one reason why God did not allow the eating of pork, but there may be other reasons, which are not removed by thorough cooking. Perhaps pork reduces your IQ by an amount too small to measure, but which makes itself felt over long periods of time. We just don't know. Does that mean that it's wrong for Jews to look for reasons for the commandments? Not at all. Rabbi Akiva tells us in the Talmud that it's even a mitzvah to look for these reasons. However, in the end, no matter what conclusions we reach, we must continue to follow the commandments. And we're not even allowed to selectively observe only the commandments we think are the most important. The Mishnah says, be as scrupulous in performing a minor commandment as a major commandment, because you do not know the value of each commandment. And the Talmud adds, the Holy One, blessed be He, did not disclose the reward for the performance of commandments, so people should perform all of them faithfully, and not base their observance on each commandment's value. You do not know from which of the commandments life in the next world will emerge for you. Unquote. In short, Judaism is a package deal. It works as a package and continues to produce good people. Since it ain't broke, don't fix it. Shabbat Shalom.